Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. India's IT industry, information technology and ITES industry, has been growing robustly over the last 2.5 decades, and it has been India's brand proposition, as it were, around the world. But the IT industry has suddenly is going through some challenges in recent years, and some of the challenges are domestic, which relate to the IT industry's current attempt to reinvent itself and reinvent its delivery model, because much of its sales is to the rest of the world, to US, Europe and other parts of the world. And it is also facing challenges from abroad. Post-Brexit, post the election of Donald Trump in the US, which is IT industry, 60% of IT industry's market, Indian IT industry exports go to the US. So we're trying to decode what are these challenges, and to do that, we have a special guest with us, Mr. R Chandrashekhar, President of Nasscom, and Nasscom is a body which represents India's IT industry, and Mr. Chandrashekhar comes with vast experience in the space of administration. Also, he was Secretary IT during the UPA regime, and after that he took charge as President of Nasscom. Welcome to our show, Mr. Chandrashekhar. So tell us, how do you see the current challenges that the IT industry faces? Over the last maybe 6-7 years, we're down to a single-digit growth. The IT industry is trying to reinvent itself, reinvent its delivery model. Some of the challenges are very obvious. Digital innovation, cloud computing, all kinds of new innovations are here before you. And then, of course, the global economic slowdown, Brexit, Donald Trump, some of these political trends. If you take all of these together, what strategy would you think the IT industry is looking at this moment?
Yeah. Well, first, I think this covers many dimensions.
Yeah, so we'll go one by one. Yeah.
Let's split this up. First, let me start with the tyranny of numbers and percentages.
Yeah.
There was a time when the IT industry was growing at over 30% a year. But at that time, the IT industry was around $1 billion, or in the mid-90s, for example, it was at $1 billion or less.
Yeah.
And that kind of growth as a percentage was actually sustained for a few years.
Yeah.
But today it's a very different situation. Today we are a $150, $160 billion industry.
Yeah.
And if you look at the growth at even high single digits, which is where we are today, then the quantum of growth is enormous. So it may look different when you're looking at it in terms of percentages, but that is one aspect to be kept.
So on a high base, a single digit.
On a high base, the percentage obviously will go down.
And today we are at $160 billion. The
yes,
IT.
We are at about $160 billion.
And much of it is exports, right?
And much of it is exports. Exports itself would account for approximately $117 billion out of that. The second thing is that yes, there are multiple challenges which the industry faces. In fact, there are multiple challenges which almost any industry faces today in the global economic scenario that we are confronted with, both in terms of economics as well as in terms of the international political scenario as well. The geopolitical forces which are at work.
Brexit and whatever, the forces of protectionism which are globally solidifying.
Yes, the forces of protectionism in turn are a product, not a cause of various economic trends, which is slowing down of growth, demographic changes in those countries,
inequalities,
and so on. And that has led to the emergence of a more protectionist worldview, more anti sort of global
anti-globalization.
Anti-globalization in general.
So how is it affecting
feeling that globalization has not benefited them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is it in the immediate future? what are the challenges for the IT industry in terms of this talk of H-1B visa restrictions becoming more stringent, etc. So, so how do you see that? Are you sort of in a structured way trying to address this, trying to lobby with the US industry, government?
You know, I think that I just want to step back a little bit, that the IT industry has been not only a major beneficiary of a global economy, it has been a big driver of the global economy. So, even if you were to want to go back to where the world was in 1980, you can't, because you know, technology has united the world and the economy across countries in ways which are pretty much irreversible.
So, at best you can stall incremental pace.
You can stall incremental pace, you can block it in bits and pieces here and there in a very disaggregated manner. But beyond a point, that's not reversible, and certainly not, you can't set the clock back. So, having said that, again, this industry is critically dependent on a free flow of three things. Number one is technology. If you look at all of these technologies, they are now completely global. The internet is a global network. The underlying computers and information technology which forms the basis of all of this is global. So, free movement of technology has been a big driver.
And people.
The second is free movement of people.
Technically
skilled people at the higher end, because that is a very scarce commodity for a variety of reasons, and I will come to that also in a moment. And the third is the free movement of data, because data is the currency, or as somebody said, the new oil. So, these are the three things on which the industry is critically dependent. From the Indian IT industry perspective, the movement of people and to a certain extent the movement of data as well are two things which are of great and vital interest to our country and our industry. And that is where the forces of protectionism and anti-globalization are trying to put some roadblocks. These roadblocks, it's understandable where they are actually getting hurt. But what is happening today is that these roadblocks are actually coming up more due to perceptions and less due to substantive factors.
That's always the case. Politics largely works on perception.
Is perception.
Tell me, how do you deal with this politics? Now, the Indian government, Indian industry, especially the service industry, now you'll have to deal with this, whether you like it or not. So, what sort of strategy do you think India can follow to Indian industry, Indian government together can follow to persuade American establishment, American businesses that this cannot be reversed, and in some sense this should be continued in a kind of win-win with a win-win formula. Now, we've had WTO, a multilateral fora which was attempting this, but WTO has received many setbacks, as we all know. Now, is it time now to go and do some bilateral deals with some of these countries, comprehensive economic cooperation agreements, where you convince them that under the agreement, specifically you gain this so much and we gain so much, so everything is put down on the table? Is that a possibility?
Well, I think you know what, the way I would look at it is that we should first look at the mindset with which we are approaching this. IT is not something we are getting. I mean, this notion that we are getting something itself, I would question. IT very much is something that we are giving and something that they are getting, notwithstanding the fact that it may be access issue for us.
So let me be more specific. Now, India has not, under WTO, we have not signed, countries have not signed a firm agreement on services. Now, services involves movement of people, which is India's main plank. That our main, our primary human resources are our primary.
Our aggressive interests are in services.
Selling point, our unique selling point. So, if you have a bilateral deal with the US, do you think through that we can have a stable work visa arrangement? to deal with the H-1B visa issue?
You see, when you look at a bilateral relationship, then work visas is so minuscule in the larger context that that will not be the focus or the be all and end all of it.
Yeah.
First and foremost, even if you look at trade, there are multiple sectors involved,
Sure.
and it's a well-known fact that in merchandise
They will seek
goods,
higher
we
access
have
in
a-
financial services.
Yes.
They'll seek higher access in legal services.
And in
where we have a defensive approach.
Right.
Yeah.
And in goods, in any case, we have a trade surplus. But if you look at it, it's not only about trade. It's also, and it's not only about trade in goods. It's also about trade in services.
Yeah.
It's also about investments. It's also about market access. There are so many different dimensions to this. And if you go to a bilateral level, then there is an economic dimension. There's also a political and a security dimension to it.
Yeah.
So all of these then come into play.
Yeah.
The WTO is one where it has been internationalized, but it is confined to trade.
Yeah.
So when you look at it bilaterally, then I think the equation has to be seen with these variables, and therefore that dynamic will be quite different. But I would certainly say that we have to be more aware of how we are positively impacting the US economy, not ours. How we are positively impacting the US economy, how that contribution is something which is critical for the US as much as it is a channel for our industry.
Yeah.
The kind of gains in terms of productivity, the kind of gains in terms of job creation capability of the client companies.
Yeah. Okay.
All of which is critical for the US and President Trump's agenda of more jobs, which is a perfectly understandable and valid agenda for any government to have.
Sure.
The challenge, however, for that country is that while they have been the creators of many of these technologies, they do have a big problem in terms of shortage of skilled manpower in areas that are important for this industry, specifically in IT and computer related areas.
One small interjection here. There is a view that automation and new, ways of doing things will greatly impact India's dominant model, currently dominant model, which is kind of body shopping. Of course, we are moving towards more value-added stuff, more automation. We ourselves are moving into more digital innovation, etc. But is that a risk?
First of all, even the notion that the industry is about body shopping is not only dated, it is at least 15 years old.
Yeah, it is dated.
It's at least 15 years old.
Yeah.
So that is somewhere pre-2000 or the Y2K
So you're saying
era.
that we are already on way to reinvent
far
ourselves.
beyond that, very far, so far beyond that probably that is a speck in the in the rear view mirror. It's no longer
So that's
even
not
visible.
a risk. That's not a risk.
That is a factor, but not in the manner that perhaps you are implying. The fact is that there is a lot of automation which has come in even into the IT industry. So it is not only automating other sectors, but it's also getting automated itself. So the employment intensity is coming down. For example, the first $100 billion of the industry's turnover required 3 million people. The second $100 billion is going to require only half that number. So that intensity is coming down.
How do you see this US's approach in this context?
So the fact of the matter is, yes, those numbers are coming down. Yes, the the sort of revenue per employee is going up or has to go up if you want to remain competitive. But also of significance is subtle changes in what is the value that the industry delivers. Earlier, the industry, as I said, 15, 20 years ago, it was about body shopping, but slowly it covered the entire spectrum of technology. End-to-end technology from, infrastructure management, software development, software maintenance, testing, the entire spectrum. So the industry by the mid-2000s developed a capability for providing end-to-end technology services. But today, what the clients are really looking for, what the companies are looking for is a partner to help them in a digital transformation. Because most of the businesses, anything that you
That should create a non-linear growth for Indian companies, right?
It creates non-linear opportunities. Now, to translate that non-linear opportunity into growth is more challenging than one might think.
So when do you think that will
at first
happen?
sight. It is already happening. It is already happening. The question
Because
is,
as you said, currently we are still at like middling single digit growth, which is on a high base is okay,
Yeah.
but which doesn't suggest that we are really moving on to the digital transformation bandwagon, you know.
well, in a
Or
sense,
have moved on to that
in a sense we are, because the technology spend, when you look at digital technologies, the sort of core technology spends may actually be coming down. But the value of what you create, when you combine technology, support and services with a lot of domain expertise and capability, and a lot of consulting kind of input, and package all of this to help a company, that is the customer of the customer side of the B2B equation, then they are being assisted in how to reinvent their business, how to reposition themselves so as to be more competitive and to be ahead of their rivals. Now, to be competitive and to be more efficient, technology combined with domain and the consulting kind of input helps. But when you want to be ahead of your rivals, then that can only come through innovation. And that's another piece where today the industry is actually stepping in, aided in part by our whole innovation ecosystem and startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is why it's so important. So, this combination of innovation within the large companies which are providing these services and the ability to leverage and imbue the innovation that exists outside into their offerings, all of this actually makes it a unique proposition, and that is why countries from across the world, it's not only the US, UK, Japan, Germany, France, Australia, China, the list is endless. So, all of them are not only using the services of the Indian IT industry, they have also set up their own units within the country, leveraging the Indian manpower. So, the bedrock is the Indian manpower and the technical skills that are available here, on top of which the Indian IT industry and the Indian services is one part of it, the multinational companies which are here is another part of it, and the global in-house centers, which are the units set up by companies across the world, is another part. So, the growth of this broad spectrum of companies is that trajectory is high.
Yeah, sure.
But I also want to mention that whichever of these three elements you look at, the quality and value addition of the work being done in India is going up at an incredible pace. We may not be hearing about it, but any visit to any of these companies and any discussion with people over there will immediately show that these services, whether they are in-house centers or of IT services, are providing more and more of the core strategic services that the client companies need.
Okay. Here I want to ask you whether foreign companies based in India providing similar services like Accenture and Microsoft, etc. I read a report that their productivity per employee or revenue per employee is higher than substantially higher than the productivity and revenue per employee generated by homegrown IT companies like the Wipros and Infosys and others. Is that true? And if it is true, what is the reason?
I think it's very difficult to make such blanket statements, because first of all,
you're saying it's not true. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying that one can't form those judgments for the simple reason that if you look at an Indian IT company, the revenues are all captured and reflected here. If you look at a foreign company or a GIC, what you capture are the costs with a certain cost plus and so on. But the value of what is being delivered cannot be captured here and is not captured here. Okay? So, that is one aspect which makes it such comparisons hazardous.
Okay, so you're saying it's apples versus oranges.
Exactly, exactly. So, one has to also look at a qualitative aspect in terms of how critical are these functions, and there is no doubt that that has gone up by leaps and bounds. And increasingly we are finding, it's rising, not reducing, that more and more of core activity is being done here out of India. The second dimension also is that India itself is a very vibrant market, and there are huge opportunities. A lot of foreign companies, including American companies, have had good access into India. I think they follow progressive policies.
It's very interesting you're saying this. You know, when the threat of lack of access to Indian IT workers to US, H1B visa, you know, salary limits being raised, when all these things were being debated after Trump's coming to power, Mukesh Ambani made a very interesting statement. Mukesh Ambani said that this could be a blessing in disguise. Indian IT companies, instead of exporting the bulk of their sales, making it abroad, instead of making it abroad, they have a chance to actually serve the domestic market. So, in a sense, what he was probably suggesting was that India also has a huge market, and it's probably the bottom of the pyramid market, where small IT innovations can help generate efficiency and productivity. What do you make of that?
There is no doubt that in a sense it represents an opportunity, and I would certainly agree that it has to be seen overall as an opportunity, especially in the longer term.
But is Indian IT industry really thinking about it in a very structured way?
But not just in that manner. I think there are two different dimensions to this, and both of which are positive as far as India is concerned. One is that you already have an engine running, and its power can be turned in any direction. And today we are looking at other markets like Japan or China, and definitely in that context, the market which is right under your nose, which is India.
But generally, should we de-risk our IT industry's revenues, which are coming largely from abroad, to really hedge it and create a robust domestic market?
I think that each market has its own sort of dynamic, its own sort of inherent factors which determine the rate of growth. You can, it's within a certain band, you can go up to a certain band. For example.
So, what are the opportunities in the domestic market?
So, in the domestic market, I think there are a number of factors which actually have made the opportunity robust. You look at the growth of mobile, which has more or less saturated or penetrated to a substantial extent the whole country. But we are still at the beginning, a very nascent stage as far as the broadband revolution is concerned. We still are at a very early stage in terms of the spread of infrastructure like fiber optic network across the country. And in some manner or the other, we have to ensure that people are able to get access to broadband at affordable prices. So, that is a limitation.
And what about the government? This whole Digital India is talking about connecting to 250,000 gram panchayats through optic fiber network.
That's exactly what I am referring to.
Yeah, and applications,
So, the infrastructure part is something where the role of the government becomes critical. The second is there is a lot that the private industry can do, and we have seen that the whole telecom revolution was driven by government policy at the end of the day. It was private sector which brought it in, but it was facilitated and enabled by a far-sighted government policy. So, we need to look at the rest of the infrastructure also from that angle as to what is the kind of framework which will encourage the private sector to come and enhance the speed of the whole thing. The second is the applications and how do we get the industry and especially the whole startup ecosystem to look at Indian problems and find Indian solutions to these. I am not suggesting that the solutions are India specific. The problems may be India specific, but both the solutions and the problems
Why
in some
not?
senses
Solutions
are
could also
applicable.
be India specific, no?
But most of these have applicability outside India as well. So, if you look at something like an Uber or an Airbnb or something like that, the solutions may have been designed with a US situation in mind, but they have applicability across the globe. Similarly, anything which is done in India almost certainly would have relevance and applicability in much of the emerging economies, developing economies, but many of them also have applicability in the developed economies as well. So, I think leveraging that and trying to get a greater focus on our economy, for example, the use of these technologies and IoT even in area like agriculture, which is totally unpenetrated almost, I would not even say underpenetrated, is going to give huge returns.
So, it's time that the Indian IT industry really looked at all these
It's
areas?
time that they also look at these areas. I am not
Is
suggesting that
Nasscom,
suddenly.
Nasscom doing anything to sort of
There are multiple things.
create discussions around these
No, I think
opportunities?
it's been ongoing. It's not a new revelation or something that we have discovered only today. There have been a lot of attempts over time. You've seen how the market has grown, how the internet economy has grown, how the penetration has grown. We have nearly 400 million users of the internet. All of these people are coming.
But given the
for a lot
global
of
environment
things.
today, do you think it's time to give it a bigger push to the domestic market opportunities?
I would say in all fairness, the government has been giving it a big push, what with Digital India and smart cities and the whole broadband network and so on. So that push is there.
Smart city,
But-
well, nothing much has happened so far.
Well, you know, the question is that the intentions are clear. The groundwork has been done. And once the implementation gets on stream, then of course it will translate into business. But I think these are initiatives which are in the right direction. Okay, implementation has always been a challenge in India, and one knows that there are challenges on the ground. But the first question is, are you simply rushing, or are you putting a lot of thought into the direction? Directionally, I think these are absolutely
So you
the
think
right
directionally we are
ones.
on the right path.
We are on the right path.
To
and we
exploit
need
the
yes,
domestic opportunities.
Yes, and we need to look at what are the roadblocks and try and address them. For example, in the government area, from an industry perspective, we have had a lot of interactions. We've highlighted the fact that the whole procurement process in the government is a big impediment.
The government and industry needs to work together. Yeah.
Government
We are running out of
industry needs
time.
to
Thank
work
you.
together, sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for talking to us and giving us your perspective on the challenges and opportunities for the Indian IT industry ahead. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.